A 2-year-old boy dies of COVID, becoming Taiwan's youngest victim of the pandemic. Not going anywhere. Train services grind to a halt over strike action. The battle for Donbas. Kiev confirms Russia's offensive in eastern Ukraine has begun. And a snake on a train. Firefighters are called in to remove an unexpected commuter. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. A 2-year-old child has died from COVID-19 in New Taipei, the youngest patient and only child to have died from the disease in Taiwan since the pandemic began. The boy received emergency treatment for almost a week, but his condition worsened rapidly, with symptoms not seen in other child patients. Doctors say he was also suffering from inflammation of the brain brought on by the disease, and the patient's parents believe their son was not taken to hospital early enough. New Taipei officials say they did their best within established treatment guidelines. Taiwan on Tuesday recorded 1,626 new domestic COVID-19 infections, yet another one-day record. Despite a growing number of confirmed cases, the government is moving ahead with plans to relax regulations. Eric Gao has the details.
Taiwan has seen over 1,000 new domestic infections daily for several days now, but most cases have been mild or are asymptomatic. The government has eased quarantine rules for such cases. Normally, COVID-19 patients need to spend 10 days in quarantine. Now, those with light or no symptoms who are staying at quarantine hotels or centralized facilities can leave after 4 days if they test negative twice. They can leave after 5 to 9 days with just one negative test. Those who complete the full 10 days can leave without any tests at all. These rules do not apply to people with serious cases or for imported patients. With the rising number of positive cases in the country, demand for home testing kits has skyrocketed. The government is stepping in to ensure supply and is working on a plan to ration kits, letting people buy up to 5 for $3 each. This could go into effect in early May.
实名制让大家有一个公平评价的一个机会，来做购买。那不管是居家隔离、居家检疫这些需要用的，那还有热点的快筛，这都是使用公费的来使用。
The government is also planning to gradually ease travel restrictions, allowing people to enter the country with no quarantine. This could begin in July at the earliest, depending on Taiwan's COVID-19 situation in the next few months. Patrick Chen and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Shanghai reported 7 more COVID-19 deaths on Monday, bringing the official number of deaths from the city's current outbreak to 10. The earlier 3 deaths reported on Sunday were China's first official COVID fatalities since March 2020. The city government said the people who died were aged between 60 and 101 and had underlying health conditions. It has also acknowledged that less than 40% of seniors aged 60 and over are fully vaccinated. Shanghai logged a further 3,000 new infections on Monday. The city has been in lockdown since late March. More than 12,000 workers of the Taiwan Railways Administration will strike on May 1st, protesting the government's plan to reorganize the administration from a government agency to a state-run corporation. The planned protest has already shut down most train services. Bing Wang explains.
Taiwan's trains move up to 230 million passengers per year, but they're expected to come to a halt on May 1st. More than 12,000 railway workers plan to go on strike to protest a government reorganization plan. Back in March, members of the Railway Labor Union first voiced their concerns about the plan to restructure Taiwan's Railway Administration, or TRA, from a government agency to a state-run corporation. The Transportation Ministry hopes the corporatization will help overhaul the system and bring new perspectives to make the train safer. The plan comes after a railroad accident last April that killed 49 people and injured another 200. While the railway workers agree systemic changes must be made, the labor union believes they should have been included in consultations and feared a new plan would affect their benefits.
你一边审条例一边跟我们沟通，那你说有意义吗？以拖代变嘛，然后两面说法嘛。司机员95%以上几乎都上免不加班了，站务员差不多6-7成。
The Transportation Ministry has promised that salaries and benefits won't be reduced. The minister, Wang Guocai, has called for meetings with workers to iron out the differences. But without an agreement, most train services will shut down on Labor Day.
大概90%以上都不加班，这目前，所以它影响很大，就是火车开不出去。退票现在剩11000嘛，的确，他们5月1号当天的订票已经关起来了。
All sides are hoping for a quick solution to ensure the safety of the trains and continue servicing their passengers. James Rayner and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
A major battle for Ukraine's eastern Donbas region is underway, according to the country's president. Russian forces have struck targets across the east, with fighting expected to intensify in the coming days. James Chater reports.
This steelworks in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol used to be among the largest in Europe, providing jobs to thousands. Now, it's yet another symbol of devastation in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. From Ukraine's president, confirmation that the Donbas is now the center of a major new phase in the conflict.
Зараз вже можна констатувати, що російські війська розпочали битву за Донбас, до якої давно готувались. Дуже значна частина всієї російської армії зараз концентрована для цього наступу.
Russian shelling hit over 300 targets on the first night of Moscow's fresh assault. When Russian President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine in February, he justified his assault by saying he was liberating the Donbas. Parts of the region have been held by Russian-backed separatists since 2014. But after nearly 2 months of war, the humanitarian situation is dire.
Ну, вообще-то не очень. У меня нарушилась психика после авиаударов. Это я вам точно говорю. Я очень боюсь. Я теперь, когда слышу самолет, это все. Я убегаю прочь.
As Ukrainian forces work to combat Russia's new offensive, the US announced that it would be providing 18 howitzers and 40,000 rounds of artillery to Ukrainian forces, as well as providing training on how to use them.
So it'll be a small number of Ukrainians that will be trained on the howitzers, and then they will be reintroduced back into their country to train their colleagues.
The military reinforcements come as Ukraine's president took the first step towards Ukrainian membership of the European Union. On Monday, he handed over the first questionnaire required for EU accession to the bloc's ambassador in Ukraine. But with fighting in the country's east expected to intensify, there's little solace from any diplomatic breakthroughs. Chris Marr and James Chaser for TaiwanPlus.
The United States and South Korea have agreed to maintain the strongest possible deterrence over escalating threats on the Korean peninsula. The U.S. envoy for North Korea, Song Kim, is in Seoul as part of a 5-day visit that coincides with the start of an annual U.S.-South Korean military drill. Over the weekend, North Korea said it tested a new type of tactical guided weapon aimed at boosting the country's nuclear capabilities. And last week, it launched what it says was an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of hitting the United States. Kim said the U.S. has not closed the door on diplomacy with North Korea.
And I once again call on Pyongyang to pursue a diplomatic path with us. We remain prepared to meet with anywhere without any conditions. Also want to make clear that we have no hostile intent towards the DPRK.
U.S.-based activist Francis Hui is the first Hong Kong activist to be granted asylum in the United States. That's according to her advocacy group, We the Hong Kongers. Hui's application was approved in September last year, but she only announced the news this month. Our reporter Reinhold Kilpatrick spoke to Hui and asked her what it felt like when asylum application was approved.
It's really heavy and upsetting when I think about, this approval of the asylum actually means that I wouldn't be able to go back to Hong Kong, and the reason why they approved my asylum application was because they recognize and acknowledge the evidence of the past persecution I faced and the fear for future persecution by the Hong Kong government and Chinese government. And so, having a Hong Kong person to be approved, to have their asylum approved, meaning the situation back in Hong Kong is not good. Like the situation of persecution, people getting persecuted and getting restricted and oppressed politically for their civic engagement, and it means that the situation is worse, and that's why they're another state is approving an asylum application, right?
There are many other Hong Kongers who are trying to escape the situation back home, whether it's through applying for political asylum like yourself or other channels. So what do you think are some ways that the United States and perhaps other countries can make that process easier, more accessible, or more fair?
We're seeing some lifeboat policies from the beginning when it was introduced and it was enacted, and then it's advanced in the UK. And obviously it's, well, from our perspective, part of it has to do with the historical responsibility that the UK government has to Hong Kong. But in contrast, like the US, they're not doing much with the safe boat, like the lifeboat policy there for Hong Kongers. So I think there are bills related to that, and it seems like it has been in the Congress for over 2 years, and it's still not getting any response, or like it's not really going up at this point. And so we're hopeful that the US government will be on board on providing better policy for Hong Kongers to come to the US. And at the same time, I hope that from publishing or announcing this news of my asylum approval, I also want to use my story and my experience, at least the knowledge I have from throughout this experience, to share it to some other Hong Kongers who are trying to seek asylum in the US. And hopefully it will help some other people who needed that information.
A train on Taiwan's east coastline had to be evacuated after a 1-meter-long boa constrictor was discovered in a luggage rack.
这蛇类应该是宠物蛇类的，它属于蟒蛇类，所以它比较没有攻击性。
Firefighters boarded the train at Yilan Station to remove the golden-colored snake, and no passengers were harmed. Taiwan Railways said snakes are not allowed on trains, and violators may be fined up to $250. So far, no one has stepped forward to claim the snake, which is not native to Taiwan. Coming up, the chopsticks that inject flavor into every meal, how it could help solve a health crisis. Details after the break.
What makes this island nation exceptionally punch way above its might? It's the fascinating human stories we heard, plus the greatest movies we saw. The enduring and painstaking past we learned, plus the beautiful people we met. The delightful cuisines we tasted, plus the coexistence of many cultures we embraced. The powerful, energizing technology we invented, plus the ancient masterpieces we preserved. The human rights we advanced, plus the motherland we called home. TaiwanPlus. We will continue to show you unheard, compelling stories that touch our hearts. Come with us as we embark on yet another unraveling journey to the world.
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome to the Gym Mando。你知道怎么去台北车站吗？没有这么多。台北哪里好玩 ？What's fun to visit in Taipei？ 我怎么知道？我都没有去逛。你家有几个人？我家有33个人。
好像天气不冷也不热。
Do I win a trophy for learning how to use these phrases?
Yes, you do. That would be me.
Ew.
我们真的很久没有表演，
走到了一个必须要停下来的状态，因为我又不会看谱，
就不知道哪来的韵，有些人喜欢。
想想我最擅长的事情好像是玩团。
其实我的歌很多都是在解决我自己遇到的问题。
我通常会发脾气或者是暴怒，是因为不公平。
发现我对舞台是不熟悉的。
诚实的讲述你自己，就会有人听。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. China's economy is flashing warning signs as the country's COVID-0 policy takes its toll. First quarter growth beat forecasts at 4.8%, but joblessness was at its highest since the start of the pandemic at 5.8%. Retail sales were also down for the first time since March 2020, falling 3.5%. The full effects of the lockdown in Shanghai have yet to be seen, but economic activity has been severely reduced in China's commercial center. The uncertainty as to concerns for global economy already reeling from the war in Ukraine and monetary tightening from central banks. Taiwan's stock market finished up today after a rough start to the second quarter, but many people are still haunted by foreign investors' record sell-off last month. Phil Wang finds out what caused foreign capital to flee the market and whether it could happen again.
Taiwan semiconductors, one of the nation's hottest commodities. They've supported the Taiwan Stock Exchange throughout the pandemic due to soaring global demand. But last month, even the desperate global demand for chips could not stem the foreign investors' exodus from Taiwan's stock market. In 1 week alone, Taiwan stocks lost $6 billion in value, a new record. Mostly blue-chip stocks like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation took the heat. So what's behind this?
台股这一波，事实上我觉得真正是受到美股的影响。那美股很重要在于第一个，俄乌战争大家都知道嘛，对不对？重点在于战争的情况之下，对于很多重要的原物料造成价格的大涨。你知道，你可以想见，通膨的状况已经变成结构性的因素了。
Chu says that the U.S. Federal Reserve raised interest rates to combat inflation, but rate hikes often translate into higher business costs, which in turn lower profits and result in losses in the U.S. market. And to make up for that, he says investors needed to sell off their best performing stocks. That's where Taiwan comes in.
台股因为过去也是3年大涨，很多个股本益比非常的高，所以说当美股下跌的情况之下，外资无从选择。只有在台股做大幅度的一个卖的动作。
In a sense, Taiwan stocks were hurt by the very fact that they were performing so well. So will there be a flight of foreign capital from Taiwan stock market again? Well, according to the chairman of Huanan Securities Investment Management, it mainly depends on one key factor.
这样结构之下，让通膨居高不下，这个 FED 升息的脚步加快。所以加快就是，5月升息2码，6月又升息2码， 你知道加快，这个可能对股价会有个负面的影响。过去历史经验，但央行急速升息之后，第2年的景气就面临很大的一个风险，知道？但是这个风险很大，其实看股票市场就知道了。股票市场如果一泻千里，我讲经济成长率一定往下掉。
Many economists are predicting the U.S. will go into recession in 2023, and that will have a knock-on effect on Taiwan's stock market. But Chu is still optimistic about the market's prospects for the next few months.
俄乌事情啊，加上对于升息的预期啊，该反映的利空也反映了一部分了，你知道？反而我觉得第2季有机会稍微反弹，但是我觉得反弹速度可能没有那么快，除非美股出现一个 V 型大涨。
Chu also stresses that Taiwanese companies are in fundamentally healthy shape once the external factors like the war in Ukraine are resolved. Analysis says Taiwan's stock market will come back strong. Klein Wang and Phil Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Sri Lanka's president has named a new cabinet and promised to seek solutions to an economic crisis in the country. Gotabaya Rajapaksa dissolved his previous cabinet earlier this month amid growing unrest and calls for his resignation. On Monday, he announced 17 new ministerial appointments and said he deeply regretted the crisis. Sri Lanka has fuel and medicine shortages and prolonged power cuts. The crisis has been triggered by a drop in its foreign exchange reserves that has affected imports and led to daily protests. 10,000 troops are being deployed to South Africa's flood-ravaging eastern coast to help with relief efforts. More than 440 people have died and dozens more are missing in KwaZulu-Natal province in one of the worst natural disasters in South Africa's history. A week of torrential rain around the port city of Durban triggered floods and mudslides that have swept away buildings and people. Thousands have been left homeless or without power or water. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a national state of disaster. People in a new Taipei City village are doing their part to protect an endangered species of turtle. In a run-up to Earth Day later this week, Eric Gao takes a look at their wildlife conservation efforts.
The yellow-margined box turtle, known as the snake-eating turtle or 食蛇龟 in Mandarin, is a protected species in Taiwan. The Forestry Bureau established a wildlife refuge for the animals on the south banks of New Taipei's Feitsui Reservoir in 2013. However, the turtle's habitat extends to the north bank as well, and local residents there have taken it upon themselves to defend the reptiles.
社区巡守要弥补那个翡翠水库巡守不足的地方，最起码我们这一段没有人会赶来偷猎那个食蛇龟。
Nearby tea farmers have also taken up the cause. They've stopped using insecticides or chemical fertilizers. This is creating a more animal-friendly environment.
这当然都是，地皮心啦，啊个迄个，滚竹啊啦，乌卡香啦，啊山猪嘛，把来迄部经少个乌落了。
Improving the local environment for animals may prove beneficial to the community as well.
让龟能够栖息，所以呢，我们用食蛇龟来带动这个区域。我们做地方创生，让它看得到，然后做好的话，让年轻人能够回流。
The villagers' efforts will hopefully create an environment where animals and humans can live together in harmony. Klein Wang and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Japanese people have one of the saltiest diets in the world, and the country's health ministry is stepping in to prevent a public health crisis. Now, Japanese researchers believe they have found a technological solution to make low-sodium food taste better. Rick Clowett reports.
It's a broth-taking moment. A Japanese office worker takes a gulp of low-sodium miso soup, using computerized chopsticks designed to exaggerate its salty taste.
いつも飲む味噌汁とほとんどやっぱ同じような濃さを感じるからですね。
Japanese people on average eat 10 grams of salt a day. That's twice the daily amount recommended by the World Health Organization, prompting Japanese company Kirin to team up with Meiji University and stir up a solution.
生活習慣病、これの重症化を防いだり発症を予防するためには日頃から食塩の摂取量を減らす必要があります。 ただ日本人はもともと食塩の摂取量が非常に多くてですね、通常の方法で食塩の摂取量を控えようとすると好きな食べ物を我慢したり、また薄味の食事を我慢しながら食べたりっていうところが必要になっていました。
The invention's secret ingredient? A weak electric current which makes salty tasting particles more active. Users attach a device to their wrist which hooks up to one of their chopsticks.
この中にはコンピューターが入っています。そのコンピューターが食べ物、まさに食べようとしている食べ物の中のナトリウムイオンを浮かせて一気に引きつけるという操作を行っています。そこで電気の力を使っているというわけです。この結果、塩味が 1.5 倍の誤差に感じられるところまでいっています。
Inventor Miyashita and Kirin are still refining their invention, but they hope consumers will be bowled away when it hits shops next year. Rick Yi and Rick Lowert for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Betty Chen. We'll leave you with pictures of Brazilian traditional block parties celebrating Easter in Rio de Janeiro. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.